I'm Christopher Merrill. I'm the founder and president of Communications Consulting Group. I started the Communications Consulting Group because I saw a hole in the telecommunications industry. My last executive position, I managed 5 states and Puerto Rico for all community contracts for the service provider. My interests were dedicated towards the company and getting them a return on the investment. I had a team of skilled, dedicated negotiators that put the interest of the company first, as they should, and I decided that there was a gap. No one was looking out for the interest of the homeowners associations and the condo associations and the landowners in general. In that 14 years, we've been able to assemble an outstanding team of individuals. We have the former vice president of Comcast on our team, the former vice president of Charter Communications on our team, the former executive director for AT&T, lawyers, really good salespeople, and fantastic people that work with your communities to get the job done. One of the things Communications Consulting does with every single client is we take a look at the property, what they have now. Most properties weren't built last year with the finest in technology, so our goal is to find out what kind of services you have on the property now, even the infrastructure now. If there's an infrastructure issue on the property, believe me, as one resident picking up the phone and calling and complaining doesn't really help. But our company, because of the size, with over 4,100 properties, when we pick up the phone to call them, we know what we're talking about, we know what to look for, and we know how to make sure that any new contract you enter into is going to include the upgraded services your community needs to make sure you're future-proofed. People ask, when should you get us involved? Anytime. We've had customers come to us in the middle of a 10-year contract with 6 years left on it. We've been able to get them out of the contract and renew the contract with better circumstances for their individual properties. Any contract can be negotiated at any time. Sometimes the service provider might not want to do it and they'll say they can't. Guess what? The other service providers who want access to your community, they can negotiate at any time. A bulk service agreement is when a community enters into a service agreement with a provider for one particular service or multiple services for telecommunications. For example, you might enter into a bulk contract for high-speed data for your community. Everybody today is using high-speed data, and you can actually get discounts of up to 60 and 70% for high-speed data if your community enters into one. It just means that the association pays for the amenity, and telecommunications are becoming more and more important to our residents and our communities that we serve. I always put it up, you might have a pool and not everybody uses the pool, but it's a fantastic amenity. If you can provide high-speed data to every single resident at 300 megs and you can get a really good discount on it, it might be something you would consider. Those are being considered today like never before.
A right of easement agreement, also known as an ROE agreement, is the agreement that allows the telecommunications service provider to access a community's private property. This document is important for several reasons. If there's ever an issue inside the community, this is the first document that is looked at to resolve those problems. Think about it this way. A community or an association is often situated on private property. In order to access that private property, the telecommunications service provider needs a document to come on, lay their infrastructure, and serve the residents of that property. A right of easement agreement, or ROE agreement, can benefit the community in several different ways. It's very important when you have a business relationship with your service provider to know who has what rights and who must do what things under your contract. For example, suppose a telecommunications service provider comes in to update their wiring or infrastructure. Suppose they damage some common areas or mark the road. This agreement is the agreement that would provide for the protections and for the response that is necessary by the service provider for any of these damaged areas. Both condo associations and homeowners associations should have ROE agreements. It doesn't matter whether you're single-family homes, condos, or townhouses, you can benefit from the protections afforded in a right of entry agreement. When we encounter a new client, we often find that they have no idea if they have an existing right of easement agreement or not. Our job is to go gather all the documents and put the puzzle together. Oftentimes, these ROE agreements have long automatic renewal periods. For example, your association could have signed an ROE agreement 15 years ago that is just in a constant auto renewal cycle. What we do is go in and see whether there's any benefit to executing new ROE agreements. If there's any benefit, we do so for your community. First, we're going to ensure that you get the best possible financial benefits and incentives for whatever type of agreement you intend to execute. Second, we're going to ensure that your contractual protections are the maximum possible. Third, we're going to ensure that your community is prepared for the future.